Hello everybody, welcome back to the brand new edition of the 5-Star Potential Podcast Social. We're on to episode 17, day 17 of our daily lockdown podcast. I hope you guys are keeping well and safe, and today, yet again, another podcast with another member of the Football Manager community. My name is Dave, and alongside me today, as you can see, we have Dupe. Dupe, we're finally on the weekend. How are you, man?
Tremendous, mate. Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous.
Sounds like there's a bit of sarcasm in that, but...
You picked up on it. No, it's good. It's just, I mentioned it last week. I had an audit this earlier in the week. I've now got another audit Monday. So when everyone's...
What happens when you work for an auditing company?
Yeah. When everyone's going to be playing their little Football Manager over the weekend, I'm going to be sat in front of a spreadsheet doing other bits, which is pretty much Football Manager anyway, so happy days.
Good. We've got Friday Night FM. Joe, how's things?
All good, mate. Tired today, but it's Friday.
Yeah, it's almost the weekend.
Up the Friday.
Up the Fridays. And our special guest today is none other than FoxInTheBox. Leigh, how you keeping, man?
Yeah, good. All good, man.
Good man. We always kick off with, we tend to kick off with this question, Leigh. Obviously about lockdown. Obviously, lockdown 2 came in a few weeks ago now. It's going to be interesting today because you've sort of made that transition into being a full-time content creator. We've had Second Yellow Card and Work the Space, who are sort of similar as well. Similar sort of times as well, ish. But what was your immediate reaction when this lockdown 2 came, and did it have much of an impact on your life and your lifestyle?
I think one had a bigger impact for two very, very, very different reasons. The second one was... by then I kind of think I got my head around it and how I wanted it to work. Yeah. It was right at the end of lockdown 1, where I'd actually speaking to Matt Nerdphonic about like how much like you mentioned, I've gone to doing this full time, how much I missed interaction with work colleagues. Yeah. I'd made the decision to go full time and leave my job, but I didn't value that social time as much as I probably should have in hindsight. I didn't consider it to be that important. So towards the end of the first lockdown, it was almost like I was on my own every day. And yeah, you talk to people on the internet and stuff, but it's not like talking to a person. Yeah. And that I found to be really, really, really tough. And I think I would have got that being on lockdown or being on furlough like I was, which is why I ended up even getting into full time, just because I was furloughed. But that's something I really messed with my head towards the end of the first lockdown. But I think because I dealt with it, the second lockdown, I kind of knew what I had to do better to alleviate that kind of worry that I had towards the end of not having any kind of real human contact other than the person I live with. Yeah,
I'd agree. I think, a lot makes sense really. The second lockdown was expected because the press had sort of teased it almost. You know, I think everyone knew it was coming, and we were used to it. We had several months of it beforehand as well. So what was the situation with work then when the first lockdown was announced? Were you furloughed sort of straight away?
Yeah, so I was working for a outdoor kind of company. Obviously with my running and stuff like that, it all fitted in really well to my kind of lifestyle and what I enjoy doing. I'd come back from living on the Isles of Scilly in October and gone to work with them in November, and was basically revamping their returns system because it wasn't working very well. So we wanted to raise the level of that and give the best customer experience possible for unhappy customers. Yeah. Obviously, returning something's not always an ideal situation. It's a small, tiny business that had kind of been grown out of a shed and kind of got bigger than what they expected. And come lockdown, I know the owner was one of your work colleagues. Basically, it was that kind of small. Yeah. I guess Dave, you kind of work in a family business, don't you? Exactly. So you kind of get the vibe where I'm coming from. So I knew instantly in my heart of hearts when I heard this furlough thing was going to happen, and we'd seen like no one really knew what was going to happen. So people just stopped spending, complete blank, and we went from doing like 500 shippings a day to maybe 30, 40 returns a day. Wow. To literally nothing. Like we were twiddling thumbs, had nothing. So I knew straight away I was going to be furloughed, and as soon as the furlough system came in or I caught wind of it, it was like bang, they're furloughed. Tiny family business, completely understood, didn't take it personal. But it was a bit of a weird time really, because it's like so unknown at that point. Yeah. And I'm kind of a solo person anyway. I think most people that play FM in this circle generally are kind of like not massively social people. We can kind of get on with our own stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But at that time, I was kind of not happy to have a bit of time off. The situation was mad. No one really knew what the future held. But I kind of thought, we're not going to be back in working anytime soon, so I need to make sure I'm keeping myself occupied. Because obviously stuff like running and that, I couldn't run in groups, so running in social groups was a really big thing for me. That was my only kind of social time with other people in like human contact other than work. So I also lost that as well. And yeah, it's just kind of trying to work out where we were going to go from there, really.
So obviously I don't know exact what was, if you don't mind me asking, what was the company like? What did they do in terms of products and stuff?
So they're an online company that is to do with like camping equipment, running equipment, skiing equipment.
I thought that'd be busy though, like running stuff.
It wasn't to start with, no, it wasn't. It
strange,
literally, as soon as lockdown came in, 2 weeks, nothing. Like, you get like 15, 20, 30 orders a day, but going from 500,
mad,
it was a massive drop.
I really thought it'd be big, because there was a lot of delivery companies that just couldn't cope with the demand. So that's really interesting.
At the time when they asked me to go back, which was about 3 months later, that was the decision point there, because the content stuff was going so well. And I knew I couldn't do both with the commitment level that I had given my content. I knew I couldn't do both at the same time. It was one or the other. So I kind of made that gamble then and said, look, I'm not going to return. And they were absolutely fine with that. And that was kind of the... So that's what I say. It's like a double-edged sword, really. On one side, it gave me an opportunity that I'd never have had. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, it made me realise how much I valued without really knowing that like going to work. I used to work with a person called George. I didn't know George outside of work, but me and George had a really similar kind of vibe, and I all of a sudden like started to miss that, because it was someone I could offload to that I knew wasn't going to judge me or didn't know me in like a kind of personal capacity. I can't really offload certain things on the internet, because that's not going to go down too well. But that was the biggest shock to begin with, which is what I think enabled me better for this second lockdown. Is I kind of knew what I had to do.
Yes, I think the thing with work is as well, every day who's going to be there almost. Whereas streaming or YouTube, there's either one going to be different people, or there's no guarantee that the amount of people that sort of you want to be there are going to be on there as well. I think with work, you always know what to expect almost in terms of who's going to be there and who's going to be talked to.
I think there'll be a lot of people in the same boat with me, to be honest, with like not realising how much routine matters. Mm-hmm. And when you lose that routine, and you've got to try and change what your routine is and find a new way in all these different weird kind of like society that we live in at this moment, we can't do this, can't do that. It was really bizarre. The first one was definitely probably more of a mental hit on me than I actually realised at the time anyway.
So did you say you came back from Scilly in November last year?
October last year, yeah.
It feels like ages ago, man. I can't believe that's only about a year. That seems like ages ago.
Only just over a year, yeah.
So what was the reasoning for that, like coming back from there?
I kind of, going into kind of the world and real life stuff, I got absolutely screwed over by a girl, to be honest.
Oh, right.
I wasn't planning to come back. I wasn't planning to come back, but I got on with this girl really well. I knew her. I'd known her for years. And it was all a bit of a false thing, really. And it was... set me up basically for her to break up with broke up with her boyfriend anyway, and they've been broken up for like 8 months, but it basically set me up as being the person that broke that relationship for her, because she was the bad egg, he wasn't, but it gave her an out to then go and see another boy, and I was very much used in that situation. That has never happened to me before. I'd never had a relationship, I had flirting relationships and whatever, but I'd never had a full-blown relationship in probably 10-15 years. Through own choice. I'm not really a relationships person, to be honest, and that was the reason I came back. And it was a huge gamble, because I didn't technically want to come back from Scilly, because I didn't really know what my future held. At that time I was doing zero content, and I was just enjoying working as like a chef. So I came back, got screwed over within like 4 or 5 weeks, and then found myself then working at the place over the road, the online company, and then it kind of went from there really, then into the content, then met a girl. And lockdown actually produced the chance for me to get to know this girl that I also had known within the local area, and just through messages and stuff. And then eventually when lockdown lifted, we met, and now I've been with her nearly 6 months. So lockdown's given me two really good things in hindsight, really, it has.
That's good.
It's really weird. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
Work life and relationship life, man. It's work.
Isn't it amazing what we do for fucking women? Like seriously, like, isn't it amazing? Like, it's just nuts when you think about what you give up and what you set out to do. Like, sometimes I just wonder whether it's just too much hassle. Blokes are just easier to please. You can see where I'm going with this. I just think, you know.
You got something to tell us?
I mean, I've got no. I've got two emotions. I'm horny or hungry. If I haven't got a sandwich, you just get on it. That's all you got to do. You know, it's easy. You know, so.
Oh man.
I say it's easy. You know, blokes. Whereas like her tonight, she's on one tonight, but I have no idea why. So I've done the best thing. I've just hid away because I ain't got a clue. And I could go up to her and say, well, everything all right, darling? And that'll piss her off. Yeah. So,
no, it's funny you asked that question. I've never thought of it that. I knew that getting the FM stuff was an absolute luxury, and I was in a really privileged position and fortunate to be able to do that. But thinking, I mean, she's a great girl, to be fair. So yeah, lockdown, though be it, has had its implications, especially in the last 2 weeks. I've unfortunately lost a cousin, my first ever cousin, in the last 2 weeks. He didn't pass through COVID or anything like that. He had a spine problem, and basically his spine turned to one bone, and he's had it for years and years and years. And he basically just gave up, and he drank himself to the brink, and then his body just failed him, really. And it was his funeral yesterday, and no one could go. So yeah, because he's in London with his uncle, my uncle, sorry, and the brother lives in Cornwall, so he couldn't go. So literally, of my side of the family, not one person could go to his funeral because we all live so far away. His dad couldn't go as well because it's just mad how this kind of stuff happens. 2 days after his son passed away, his dad was rushed into hospital and had to have his right arm removed because he had a blood clot in it. And the blood clot would have gone through to his heart and obviously killed him. So it was like two things like in real quick succession. But my uncle's awesome. He's very much he'll go and sleep on a bench if it means giving up the last £10 for someone else to eat type thing. He's very much like that. And he kind of made a little joke of it and a little laugh and said, you know, I'd always said that I'd give my right arm for my son to feel better. And obviously Isaac's passed away and is no doubt in a much better place now for the pain that he used to live with. And my uncle's lost his arm and Isaac's happier. So it's weird how these things kind of like work together. Yeah, it's really bizarre. So it's been a bit of a tough 2 weeks really. In the second lockdown anyway, but I mean, like from a personal me perspective, like I've dealt with it really quite well, but from a family perspective it has been quite trying. But then my family now is my mum's got four sisters and 5 brothers, and she's the youngest at 55. And there's only one of those has passed away. We've got 4 uncles and 1 auntie over the age of 75. So our family is one of the what you would consider most vulnerable, I guess, to COVID, really. We've had no problems with it. But I know in the next 15 to 20 years, as I'm now probably going to be settling down and starting to things happen with my life and taking forward and me actually finally growing up, I'm going to see a lot of family members pass away. So the sooner this kind of pandemic kind of pisses off, really, the better I can get on with going and seeing these people that I just can't see because for their own risk. I'm prime carrier, aren't I, really? I'm pretty fit and healthy. I look after myself. And if I have carried COVID, every opportunity I have, then I can pass it on to someone who's more vulnerable. So I can't see these people. And that's really hard. That is really, really, really hard. I've got one grandparent left. She's in her early 90s and I can't see her. Fortunately, she's healthy, very healthy. But that's a struggle. That's a struggle you don't really consider or you don't think about on a daily kind of thing, really.
It's amazing how it puts into perspective that you just take for granted. I'm very lucky to have my mum's side. Unfortunately, I never got to meet my dad's parents, but my mum's parents, I've got uncles and aunts, and they are a stone throw away from me. And I think almost it gets a little bit too easy to see them. And obviously now with COVID and that, you can't. And you know, it's not saying that. Oh, I would, if it wasn't out, if we didn't have COVID, I'd be around their house every weekend. I wouldn't. It's just that now you can't, and now it gets taken away from you. You know, it's that forbidden fruit. You can't have it, but so now you want to see it more. Do you know what I mean? And it is amazing how that really puts it all into perspective about COVID. I think it's brought, sorry. I will say, I think one thing to say is I think it has really brought some families together.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Closer than ever.
Yeah, some of the stuff you see on social media, obviously being that kind of young 30s, you have I have friends who have only recently embarked on having children, and those children now they're having to spend time with, and that's really cool.
Mm.
I mean, you've got young children yourself, haven't you? So
yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, we were talking to Amiga Luke a couple of episodes ago, and he got put on like the safety watch or whatever it is, you know, the special what's it called, the shielding list because his wife was pregnant and just gave birth. So he was able to be furloughed and spend the first 6 months with that child, which hopefully, fingers crossed, in the nicest possible way, he never gets that opportunity if he has another child, because hopefully COVID would disappear. So for him, it must have been a great experience, first child, and he can just involve himself so much with that baby.
I think that's been the thing with a lot of people though. Like, we've had a lot of stories like that. I know the whole year has been a bit of a write-off, and it's been really shit. But some of the stories, like, you know, if this didn't happen, Leigh, you wouldn't have the opportunity to become a full-time content creator. You know, the likelihood of you being with the girl you're with at the moment may not have ever happened. You know what I mean? It's just crazy how such a shit year. If we actually all look back, there's probably 2, 3 or 4 moments that we think, like, I couldn't have done this, or this probably wouldn't have happened if we didn't have this sort of extra time to ourselves. So it is really interesting how the year's planned out, really.
I'm going to talk a little bit about emotional subject for me, so I'm sorry in advance. I might make too many jokes because that's my way of getting over things. Talking about good things coming out of bad situations and things happening for a reason. When I was 16, my uncle passed away. He died of a heart attack at age 40. And to me, he was like a second dad to me, because he would take me to play football. He taught me more about football than anyone did. My dad used to manage a men's team on a Saturday, and he used to manage a kids team on a Sunday, which was nothing involved with me. So I used to go around and play football with my cousin. We used to play a game called FIFA Keeper, we called it, is where one was on the trampoline, and because he had a sunk-in trampoline. So one was on the trampoline, and he was in goal, and you just take shots and penalties, and you could just dive around, like, great fun. And then I used to stay over most Saturday nights and then go and play football the next day. And when he passed away, my whole world just kind of closed in on itself. It was a very tough time for me. And I went in, basically, we went up to a long trip up to Scotland to see one of our old school friends, me and four other mates. Like, we were only 16, we were on the bus, and we was like 19 and a half hours, I think it was. We had to go from Gloucestershire to London, Victoria, and then up to Scotland. Wow. And it was only on the way back that my now wife texted me, and she was just like, I've just heard what's happened, I hope everything's okay. And ever since that moment, I don't think that, this sounds really soppy, but I don't think there's been a day where I haven't texted her. So because of that situation, if that didn't happen, I don't think I'd be with my wife and have my 2 kids. So to take the positive from a massively negative situation, it's crazy how these these quite major events can really start something very small into something massive.
No, bang on right. Yeah, definitely.
Mad.
So one door closes.
Sorry to kind of...
One door closes, another one opens, isn't it? Sometimes, and although you can't see it straight away, it all sort of comes into fruition a lot of the time.
It's like the roller coaster kind of analogy. Like with every drop, there's a rise. Yeah. And that's life. Like, it's just constant up and down. One moment in your life over the next 6 months, I can guarantee you will feel on top of the world. Another moment, you will feel the lowest you think you've ever been. Yeah. That cycle will just continue. There's one thing in life is there's no constant. It is always up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So whenever I'm kind of fall into those moments, it's kind of like, all right, it's a bit shit today. I don't like how I feel today, but it's cool. Tomorrow, let's not make it 2 days. Let's make it 1 day, and we move on. I think I had one of those literally like just right before the second lockdown. I was like, oh, here we go again. And I was just like, okay, we've got a new game coming out pretty soon. That's a big plus. We'll get onto that one. But yeah, no, that's definitely what you're saying, Duke. There, definitely, yeah.
I think the one thing to carry on with the roller coaster analogy is that the way I kind of think of it is when you're on a high and it goes down to the low, you've got to remember there's even though it's inevitable there's going to be a low, there's going to be another high. Yeah. So you got to take the positive from that. And when you're at the low, you got to think, well, this isn't the worst. It's, we might be here again, but we know straight around the corner there's going to be a positive or something. So it is just being strong mentally, isn't it, to be able to kind of give that enough to go up to where it needs to be positive. But yeah, it's been a crazy world, crazy 6-9 months for everybody, and it's mad that it was only a couple of days ago where that's a year since the first case.
Oh yeah, I saw I saw that on Facebook or something. Like they did a share rubbish
Just
social
now
media
over
stuff.
a year.
Like it was COVID's birthday. I was like, what? That long already? I know, yeah, that's what they put it as. But oh my god, it was like.
I remember though, in like December, January, and they're talking about it. I just did not take it seriously at all. I just didn't think it would. I thought it was a bit. I know it's a bit weird, but like Ebola, everyone was shit about.
And all this stuff that we've heard. Yeah.
No, it's exactly the same. I have quite a big running group that I run with, and everyone in there, when it come around and there was potential lockdown and stuff like that, there was 3 or 4 people in there were like, nah, I just blow over like everything does. And then there's a couple of people like, no, I actually think this is serious.
Yeah.
And we know, but no one knew. And then all of a sudden lockdown happens, and then you see the cases rise, and places are just falling into anarchy because they can't get enough masks, they can't get enough PPE. I obviously had my fall during the middle of the 2 lockdowns where I was running, took a corner really sharp, cut my knee really badly open. Going into hospital was a mad experience. Just moving from ward to ward. They had to check things, double check this, triple check this. I had 2 COVID tests, which were 2 of the worst things I've ever had in my life. Like sticking it down the back. Oh, it's horrible. Absolutely horrible. But it was a mad, being in there. But at the same time, I stayed on 2 different wards while I was in the hospital before I had the surgery. The wards were filled with old people. It was, and I know obviously hospitals are generally, I've worked in a hospital, they're generally older people anyway, but if it was just to rip through any one of these wards, you'd see 40-50 people just drop. They would, because they're all over the age of 80, 85, and they obviously are not in the greatest shape of their life. They've had the better years behind them and whatever, and they all had health implications, but you can see just why or how it's ripped through the older kind of community. But yeah, going through that situation as well in between the 2 lockdowns, that was pretty crazy too.
You said earlier on, obviously, about your family, friends and stuff. What's the situation been with those? We've had some people that haven't even seen their parents in over a year. What's your situation been since the first lockdown?
I'm quite lucky because when I moved back from Scilly, obviously I was living on my own over on Scilly Isles. Moving back, the plan was to come back, have a couple of months to myself because I'd earned my year's wage in the kind of summer month of Scilly because it's like seasonal work. I was gonna have a couple of months to do whatever I wanted to do, maybe run another large event and have a bit of travelling. And then in January I was going to get a proper job, settle down and try and do something career-wise. That would couple in with getting my own flat and stuff. So obviously I tied in with coming home and living at home to begin with. So I obviously lived with my mother and my stepdad. Though I don't live here much anymore, I kind of flick between the girlfriends because the girlfriend's parents had just literally moved to Spain before the lockdown. Oh, right, okay. So she's kind of on her own. She has one grandparent who's not really involved in her life and has a brother and sister who are half brother and sister and they're not really that close. So I flick between living with her and living at home because obviously she's allowed that bubble and whatever, and she is pretty emotional herself, so needs that kind of a support, especially with having no family around. So I flipped between home and there. So I was quite lucky that my most direct person in my life, who's been a constant throughout my entire troublesome teenagers and really difficult younger years, was my mum, and she's still around. She works from home as well because she works in the education sector. She's not working at a school or anything like that, but she works for Ofqual. So she's around. Obviously they've had loads of stuff to deal with as well. So I've been in kind of direct contact with her. In terms of friends and stuff, I guess I'm kind of fortunate that a lot of my friends also have similar interests like gaming and whatever, so we kind of cross paths on the Xbox or just chat via Skype or whatever. I'll do some random quiz on Zoom and that, so that hasn't been too tough. And we've always maintained kind of right now we're allowed to go and exercise with one person, so when we go out on a run, our group of boys who are local, we kind of rotate around running with each other, so we're all kind of seeing each other. So we've kind of found ways around it, but sitting here and thinking about it now, it's crazy that you have to do. It's crazy that we're having to live in a world where you have to do that kind of planning just to see somebody. And where we would just go for a run before, we make sure now that we're running in country lanes, kind of avoiding country parks where there's going to be a lot of people. So it's just sitting here now and thinking about it. It's mad the extra stuff that you have to go to that's almost become normal.
Do you not think it's weird that it's taken this for people to improve their fucking personal hygiene and actually be clean, because I mean it's crazy. Like on a scale, like when you go to a supermarket and you get a trolley before COVID, when was the last time that trolley would have been wiped down or clean? You know,
never.
And that sort of stuff. Like, why were we not doing that stuff before? Like, why is it taking this?
It's classic human race, though. We are all about being like reactive rather than proactive.
Oh, 100%.
That's human race all over. We do things after the occurrence of the situation rather than preventing before it. It is just human race. It's so bad in that way. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how many shops carry on doing it, because I bet when that dies down, all that, some shops will just like never get that spray and cleaning equipment out again. But there will be. I think there will be others.
Yeah.
There will be others.
I disagree, because
well, you know,
I think there'll be
I won't
so
be going
many.
to Technical Fireplace Company.
I think there'll be so many still in masks after the whole thing's done.
Mate, the masks will continue for years.
Still minimising the people. I honestly don't think we're gonna. It's mad. Do you know one thing that we were talking about the other day? We were on a family WhatsApp, on a family FaceTime, because I didn't know on WhatsApp you can FaceTime like a group chat.
Yeah, video chat. Yeah.
So you can have like 3 or 4 thing, which is pretty cool, to be fair. I didn't know. And we're talking about like my little boy. So my wife's been doing scrapbooks of like news articles and all this stuff from COVID, because she's like, well, in 10 years' time, he's going to be at secondary school and he's going to be learning about this.
Yeah, very much.
Because this is like the thing now that for many years kids are gonna learn about at school, and he's got such a good grasp of what's going on, and he's 4, nearly 5, and it's awful that you've got to try and explain these things, and why why we can't have everybody around at Christmas at the moment, we're not sure, and we might not see these at Christmas, we might have to do a second Christmas. And then he jumps up with the does Father Christmas wipe my presents before he puts them down?
That is
I was like,
mental.
Tory. Yeah, he come out with that. He come out with that yesterday to my wife. Will he wipe the presents? Because but at school they teach him all about like washing your hands, and he's got to have this special stuff because his skin's quite sensitive. And they're constantly washing hands and wiping tables. When we kind of did the parents' evening, they're saying that they believe this is going to be here for a while, so he's class R reception, so let's get them used to thinking this is the normal. You have to wipe everything down, etc. So he's well versed at wiping stuff down and doing all that jazz. So it's just nuts that that's kind of like a common thing now. And it's the he'll see Florida on the telly, and he'll go, because we went to Disneyland Paris and we look at those photos a lot, he'll go, can we go to Florida once the germs are gone? And it's stuff like, you're like, fucking hell, that's brutal. This is kind of the first thing on his mind, and he's 4.5, nearly 5. It's just mad.
Yeah, it's mad.
That's mad. He knows about that, like that sort of stuff. But I think, like the positive you said out of that, the fact that they're going to be like, at that age, they're already knowing they've got to be hygienic and stuff like that. Yeah, it's going to bodes well for most kids, I think, and being brought up.
Doesn't help. He's got a little bit of OCD.
Yeah.
But he's in his prime.
Obviously, Leigh, one of the purposes of this podcast is obviously to let people know there's always someone there to talk to and so on. Obviously, trying to raise awareness for mental health and stuff like that. A lot of us have had our dark times, struggled. Have you ever, had to reach out to someone, or do you think if you ever sort of were that low, you'd be able to have that opportunity to reach out to someone?
I think going back to like my early 20s when I just started working in childcare, working with very vulnerable children who were from some very dangerous children, I found myself in a few situations which were quite scary. Not life or death situations, but definitely situations that involve things like knives and stuff like that. Wow. And you're kind of on your own, and this child's on their own, and they're capable of whatever they want to be capable of. And I guess those situations earlier that happened in my kind of like, I went from being a dysfunctional child and a very like erratic teenager to then working in children's kind of sector at 18 years old by complete accident, because I was working for a little company called Little Kickers, which is like football for like 2 to 5 year olds, kind of colour coordination games and stuff like that. and the headmaster of a special needs school saw me, brought his grandkid, and just said, "I'll come and do some sessions down the local children's needs special needs school, and we'll see how it goes." So like being from that kind of sector, as a child myself, I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to give back to people that I'm kind of familiar with or similar to, and ended up being in that kind of situation, or that job then for like 12 years. There were some mad situations across the line, from, I say, involving knives to taking down a child trying to hang themselves, all kind of stuff like that. So many traumatic experiences that I at the time in my 20s I couldn't talk about, and it wasn't until I left childcare and went to Scilly Isles and started working in the NHS, because I had kind of transferable skills, that I sat down with a doctor to talk about my weight issues, why I've been putting on weight and what was going on. And that point then, it kind of just opened up into he opened up a whole can of worms of things that were locked inside me that I never realised about, like stuff that was like just kind of like reverberating in me, that was causing me to act in certain ways that I didn't understand. And I went through all that process, not counselling as such, but went to kind of have some sessions of like meditation and stuff like that, and try and understand and like stop me being so erratic, because though I was that as a child, it was kind of compounded through my 20s. My 20s were definitely my worst point of my life so far. My 30s have been my best. My 20s were my worst. My teenage years were just everywhere. So I'm trying to put right in this 30s what I kind of let go wrong in the 20s. So having to finally open up, and it was a German doctor, believe it or not, and he probably wasn't very PC, and probably spoke to me quite in an honest way that he maybe professionally shouldn't have. But living on an island, you get to know everybody. I was working with him as well, and I think maybe he felt comfortable to tap into something that had never been tapped in before. And when I kind of dropped it and let it go and said what I wanted to say about how I felt, and just like burst into tears. So this was the same point then. At the first time around, I'd been on Scilly Isles for like 2 years at that point then. I left the mainland to go to Scilly Isles when I was like 28. So I was about just turning 30, and just burst out crying. I was like, I miss home. And I just, for the first time, felt like, even being nearly 30, I felt like I felt like a child. Like I realised what had all happened, and it was a really weird thing. Yeah. And then I guess since then, kind of my journey of life from like 30, 31 has really taken a different turn. And I don't get me wrong, I know Dupe's had a bit of this in the past as well. I get ridiculed for maybe showing my journey more, and it looks like a flaunting type thing. But I feel like me sharing that in some way in that later part of my 20s, I was influenced by hearing other people's journeys. And I thought, oh, you know what? That really inspired me to go ahead and do something about what I wanted to do. So I kind of took that and was like, you know what? If one or two people change their life, can say something about how they feel, or want to physically make themselves better in terms of like a health aspect, and I have that effect, it fulfills me. It makes me feel happy that I can see someone else being successful. So eventually opening up, realised to me that all this stuff that I had locked up was better to speak about. Literally in a stream like 2 days ago, we talked about a lot of my kind of childhood stuff, and how we got round to that, I don't know. But I've never had the chat so active about asking questions, talking about their kind of experiences. I even shared something, and I don't mind sharing it here. I have a statement of special needs from when I was a child. This was like mid 90s, where it says in the opening sentence, and this is crazy, it says Leigh is a retard. In the opening sentence of my special needs statement. And that was
telling us about this before.
That was in the 90s, which was a very different era there. I didn't learn to read until I was like 14. And you know what taught me to read? Football Manager. Believe it or not, it genuinely did. But these are things I've never openly discussed. So I'm happy to mention them now, because I think I'm in the best, not in the best environment ever, because coronavirus and whatever, but I'm in the best person I think I've been in and shape to talk about things. So sharing these on stream the other week, or literally 3 days ago, was eye-opening. And do you know what? I walked away from that, and this comes back to the not having I think it came because not having that kind of person to speak to at work, because I would share that kind of stuff with that person, and I was almost sharing it with the chat, but I felt so good after, and the comments and the replies and the people sharing their things and coming through the Discord, it was an unreal experience. And I probably left that feeling the happiest I've ever felt off the back of anything. And I hadn't really done anything. I just talked and opened the chat up to talk about what they wanted to talk about. And I thought in this time, that's probably the best room I've ever had in the 8 months that I've done it. And yeah, it was a crazy feeling just to be able to share stuff that I've never ever spoken about before. And I think to some people that watch my content and know me a bit more, they know I'm a little bit erratic. I'm probably a little bit of a, I don't know what the word would be, maybe a bit of a rogue or something like that. And I'm flippy and I'm emotional. And I think it doesn't make right why I'm like that from what's happened, but it makes people understand the person better. If I could learn every one of the people that I know within the community and stuff like that, it would be so awesome. And I think the situations we had with like the crossing paths in real life and stuff has really helped us as a community get to know each other better. I kind of got off on a tangent there, I guess, but sharing and opening up. I'm annoyed I didn't do it earlier, but then it kind of led me to where I am now. So maybe holding on to it that long was maybe a good thing as well. I don't quite know, but yeah.
I've got stuff I want to say, but I find it very difficult to follow what you've just said there, to be honest, because that's kind of opened my mind a little bit. But two things. One, like when it comes to showing your success and stuff, I always felt that when I was doing mine, I was getting a lot of feedback from others saying, "Oh, you've made me want to start doing it." And the more I saw them, kept me going as much as it probably kept them going. So I'm thinking, well, if I stop, they'll stop. So I felt like I should carry on. I stopped. Cut a long story short. But yeah, secondly, like GG on like opening up and sitting down and talking to a person, because I think for me, like when my boy was born, like my wife wanted me to sit in front of a doctor, and I actually opted against it. And the reason why was because, to be honest, I probably was very scared to what would come out and what people would probably be able to tap into my mind. And I didn't want to hear it. And I felt that I could get over it my way, which, to be honest, I feel I have. And I feel that is behind me now. But like for me, I was petrified of what may come out, and I might not want to hear what people are going to tell me or the way that I feel. And so, yeah, so GG on opening out, because
when you were one of the first other people, I think I can remember sharing a journey, because it was all to the charity to jump out of a plane, wasn't it? When I have not got the balls to do that, I'll tell you that for nothing. That is scary.
Neither do I.
That scares me. However, though, when I saw you doing that, it was so awesome, and I could see people feeding off it. And even though I'm not directly involved in it, I'm seeing people feeding off you, and that's feeding me. And I'm like, yeah, I want to get on a run now. I want to go and do this. I want to go and do that. And just seeing that on Twitter, man, like one thing that lockdown has done, which I'm so grateful for, is I've seen so many people joining Strava, the running app, off my friends, and I'm seeing them posting runs, and I'm seeing them feeling better about themselves. And these it's kind of given an opportunity for people. I mean, furlough's not great, but it's given an opportunity to do things that maybe you just can't fit in your everyday life because work takes over and you feel tired or whatever when you get home. But seeing people getting out and being active and doing things, maybe joining like online Zoom classes to do like plyometrics at home or something like that. Awesome. And I say there's people in my direct family that have got on that kind of hype as well. And seeing them more healthy. My stepdad is borderline. He's not an alcoholic, but he's borderline, might as well be. But he's on the in lockdown. He's on the treadmill. Like, he's not been on lockdown, but because he can't go out to the pub, he's replaced the pub with getting on the treadmill. The geezer's lost 2 stones in like a couple of months just from walking on the treadmill, and he feels better than ever. And you can tell in his attitude, he's so much better, and he's like an application to life is probably more what I'm talking about. It's that health, that not so much like eating healthy, but certainly getting out and being active and stuff. Man, I don't eat healthy at all. Like I'm 5 days a week I'm decent, 2 days I'm terrible. But yeah, that chance for people to get out and share their story, I'd encourage anybody to share it. I am the guiltiest of focusing on the one bad comment from the 100 good. I am the guiltiest because I want everyone to be happy.
Never.
It's I want to please I want to please everybody. But yeah, you have to. My best mate's very much like that, and I have gone on a kind of journey. Not only I think be able to share my journey, but learning that that one person doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things if you've made 2 better.
How miserable must they be if that's all they can do is come to you
exactly.
in a negative tone? So fuck them.
Yeah, exactly.
If anyone thinks that their last 18 months has been terrible, just imagine that I've gone from being the fittest I've ever been to now sharing fucking meal deals every day on Twitter. But no, it is good. It's one thing that I'm gutted about with lockdown and my work. So with lockdown happening and COVID happening, my work levels and my stress levels have gone through the roof. And instead of picking up the cigarettes again, which is good because I'm still off those, but I picked up food, and that's my comfort at the moment, and I need to break that. But one meal deal at a time.
Hey, what did we say earlier? It's a roller coaster. What goes down comes back up.
But like I said, I think I've said it a couple of times. I said if I end the year smoke free,
that's huge.
I'm not bothered if I put a couple of stone on.
How many years have you smoked?
On and off for 8-9 years.
That's a massive cycle to be broken.
Yeah. So I'm nearly close to closing in on 190 days now. So I'm good. But yeah, one thing at a time.
That's really good.
And to lighten the mood slightly, it wasn't that dark just then. We ended on a half decent note anyway. To lighten the mood.
What, me and my meal deals? It's always me and food.
No, to be fair, I think food's one of the hardest things because when people say eat healthy, it's hard to, as a person, just eat salads all day, every day. You know what I mean? I know it's not the only healthy food out there, but it's just even stuff like if you just cut out bread for a week, the amount of weight you can lose and stuff like that, it's just mad. Or, I always think food's the hardest one, and then you go into a shop, and I think you're in a similar situation, Dupe, and you'll see you can a Monster, you pack of sweets or whatever, and you're like, nah, go on, a pack of that won't hurt, or a can of that won't hurt. I think we're all in the same situation on that. It's hard. Food is so hard.
I find that I could be good for 3 weeks, and the 4th week I'm on call.
Oh, yeah.
And that kills me because I'm up at stupid o'clock in the morning, or I'm about to sit down for dinner, and it's ruined because I'm called out. So on the way home, I just grab something. And if you stop at a shop or a garage or a service station on the way home, or McDonald's, you can try and be as good as you can, but there's only so much good you can be in a place full of shit, right?
Oh, it's the planning of what the shops do though. That's why they put the chocolate at the counter, and it's all products. Yeah, it's smart. It's smart, and they don't help you. They really don't help you.
But I'm sure if I would have been locked down and furloughed, I would have done my meal plan, my meal prep that I've been doing. I would have done my gym stuff at home, and I would have been good. Absolutely good.
I see that even the gym stuff, right? I was on it 2 months back between lockdowns on the gym every day. I wasn't doing anything hardcore, not getting my heart rate up or whatever because I'm still running, but my extra kind of mobility, strength work, not done any of it since lockdown started. I kind of tied in with the new FM coming out and I didn't have the time, but at the same time, I haven't had that motivation because I'm not going to the gym. I'm not getting out of my home. My home environment feels too rest. It feels homely. It doesn't feel like a gym. And I find that tough.
Between 1 and 2, I went back to the gym and I kick-started again and was doing really well. And then we had a few instances where I had to isolate and I just couldn't go. And I've got the kit here. I've got resistance bands. I've got, all of that stuff that I can do what I need to do. But like you said, you're at home. You're not going to, I struggle to do it at home. But you also have the accountability of going to the gym, seeing the same people every week. And there's times where you walk in, you're like, oh, dude, I didn't see you yesterday. What are you up to? Oh, I had to do this. Oh, cool, And you have that interaction and you do feel guilty if you don't go. So as much as the gym is a strange place and a crazy place for some people, for me, it was always keeping me on the straight and narrow. So open the fucking gym.
Well, funny, no, you brought up earlier about being clean and stuff like that. This second lockdown, the weirdest thing I think of it all is the places I felt that controlled who came in, who did what, who went where, who kept distances, who kept themselves safe, were the places that have been closed down. I can't go to my local coffee shop and I can't go to my local gym or my swimming pool, yet they were the 3 best places to go and the safest places to go for control of COVID. You couldn't get in there if you didn't lose the track and trace app. You couldn't go in there if you didn't have your mouth covered. You couldn't go in there, or you were told to leave if you're going to get in people's way and be rude and stuff like that. You had to book within certain numbers were only allowed in. Well, I feel like supermarkets are it's a free for all, and schools I don't have a child, but just running past the school the other day, the kids were on the playground together in massive groups, cross contamination and
apparently COVID's not active in playgrounds because when you go to pick up your kids, nobody wears a fucking mask either.
Yeah, it's mad.
It's crazy.
That's one thing that did kind of wind me up a little bit with the second lockdown, from seeing the places that they hadn't shut down, the places that they had, and my experience of who dealt with it the best. They closed all the best places down and punished all the businesses that were doing it well, and then left all the other ones that weren't doing it well. Mate, my local Tesco's is the only one in the area that I live that is a supermarket. It has, bless her heart, she's wonderful, a little 75-year-old lady at the start of it. They've changed her over now because of the age and so on. But she would just hand out gel to people as they went past, and that was it. If people would walk in like young teenagers who didn't give a shit about their older peers and so on, they're just walking without masks. It was mad. It was like, and you're leaving this place open, kind of like unmanned, and a poor old lady on the front door. They've changed it now, luckily, a little bit, but it's like, and no one's tracking and tracing and going in there. No one's following any kind of guideline. I'm dubious whether track and trace even works, to be honest, but it was some kind of prevention line where the gym and the coffee shops and the swimming pool, they all did it properly. And it's just like, this lockdown. Like, my prediction at this point is we'll get to the 4th of December and they'll go, it's going up. We're gonna have to do it to the 4th of January.
I think it'll be another month. I do.
Yeah, we'll get to the 4th of January, and because all the schools have closed and no one's crossing so much because everyone's at home trying to spend time with each other at Christmas to make it as real as possible, they'll go, we've solved it, so we can go back to normal.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back to normal for January. We'll get to February and they'll go, oh my god, it's rose again. And like, well, look at the pattern. Like, get unis home, get them on Zoom and whatever. And it's hard with children because you are affecting. Like, hearing the story about your kid is mad. Like what he's learnt now and how different his generation is going to be. But it's difficult because there's so many children have been affected from post 16 to year 11 and so on, with results and all that kind of stuff. It has really damaged more than one generation education wise. But if you're going to stop it, you've got to stop it at where its probable source is, and that is if you're cross-contaminating hundreds of children in one go. Of course, if they don't, they might not die from it, and I know that it's a very small portion of people that have, but they're carriers. It's like the rats and the plague type thing. You know, the bubonic plague was spread between the rats moving around the city and crossing paths and so on. So I don't know. The second lockdown was way more frustrating than the first one, but yet I think I did deal with it better.
I don't think the second lockdown's a lockdown, but that's a different fucking kettle of fish.
No,
we'll talk about that on another pod show.
You're probably right, yeah.
I see no difference in this last month to the month before, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't go to the pub. That's it. And the gym. That's it.
Mm. But most pubs, from what I understand, I'm not a pub person, but most of them are dealing with it quite well. Limiting tables.
I literally have one. I have one here, like 5 doors down from me, and yeah, I think he sounds pretty busy. Well, he sounded pretty busy. So I don't know. It's just ropey. Anyway, sorry, Dave. I cut you off and went on a tangent.
That's right. Well, we always like to end finding out a bit more about your interest outside of FM as well, Leigh. Question we tend to ask
running
is
nah, you don't like running.
Books. Are you a big book reader? You have any books that you recommend that you've read over the years?
Hang on. I'm just going to butt in here.
He's got a bookshelf there.
I'm going to butt in here. So when Dave says this, he's always looking. It's the way he kind of was. Oh, look at his bookcase.
I didn't even look.
He's got a tiny little.
You like what's on this bookcase, I think.
Go on,
right.
go on.
So
go on, Leigh.
Is it porn?
I'm not going to get. I'm not going to get any of it off. But in kind of order, this is going to appeal to quite a few you restream boys. That is first
it my
off
autobiography.
First off, it's a running one, of course. It's advanced marathoning, but from there it goes to Stato's Ultimate Football Trivia, which is an old school trivia book to do with football. It then goes through to Football Manager and what was it again? Football Manager Stole My Life. It goes through that. Yeah. Into Football Management, the Guide to Football Manager, into a centenary anniversary program of Watford, the day we should have got promoted and won. We should have won the league, and some idiot went on the pitch and cost us the title to Bournemouth. So that's there as memorabilia of pain. And then following on from this, and this is the best bit of it, in my opinion. There are 4 games and a mouse. The mouse is still sealed, not opened. Minnie Mouse FM 2006, still sealed, never opened. The game is Championship Manager Quiz for the PlayStation 2. I used to live on it, so much so that I knew every single question. FIFA 95 for the Sega Mega Drive. Probably my first ever FIFA. Followed with Football Manager Live, which has never been opened. Bring it back.
Yeah.
And the best, in anyone's opinion, Football Manager that ever lived, 01-02. Yeah. And there we go. They're games of those 4 games are probably my childhood in one go. If you take out Crash Bandicoot, because I loved Crash Bandicoot as well. But yeah, so they're the 4 games, and that's what it is. So I haven't read many books outside of football and running. I read a book called Why the Whales Came, which was wrote by Michael Morpurgo. And,
Michael Morpurgo, I used to love it when I was younger. Yeah.
It's literally the only book I've read, and I read it because it was set on the Isles of Scilly and about a boy who lived on the Isles of Scilly who wanted to be a sailor and ran away from his family to go and be a sailor in the Navy and stuff like that. Not a true story, but wrote on the Isles of Scilly. So yeah, I wanted to just see what it was like, because obviously living on there, I wanted to know a bit more about the culture and the history and things that are linked to it, really.
He had a football book called, I think it was as simple as Goal or something like that, and it was about a kid who, I think he got hit in a car crash or something. He was in a coma.
Santiago Mundes.
Yeah. Huh?
No? Santiago Mundes, no?
No.
Muniz. Yeah.
Mundes, same
Santiago
difference.
Munoz. No.
Santiago Mundes.
He's in a coma, and he's a big Chelsea fan, and like he can see everything around him, but he can't respond to it. And like Gianfranco Zola comes in and like gives him a shirt and everything, and like that's his idol, but he can't say anything to him and stuff like that. So yeah, that was Michael Morpurgo as well. But that was a book I'd read years.
I think
and years
my
ago.
favourite football books that I've read, and I have read quite a few of them as a kind of teenager, was to do with football hooliganism.
Yeah.
I had, after Green Street Elite came out and that kind of stuff, I'd never really heard of that world before. I must have been like a young teenager as well. So I ended up picking up some football hooliganism books. I cannot remember for the life of me what they were called. They're in the loft, actually. And just some of the stories that you'd pick up from there, and then you'd go onto YouTube and watch some stuff, and then you see Ali Mengum doing his kind of work around and sharing stories from around the world of like Serbia and so on, and what football was like. I always remember one story that I read about AIK, and it was it's a firm called the Black Army, and they were going home from a friendly game as West Ham fans were going to I think is Sweden. Is AIK Sweden? I think it is.
Yeah.
They were going to Sweden, and there was about 20 to 30 Black Army people and about 40 to 50 West Ham fans, and on the boat the West Ham fans were jumping off because the AIK Black Army guys were so crazy. They were jumping off just as the boat left the dock because they didn't want to fight them. But some mad stories to do with like football hooliganism and that kind of stuff. But because I say you think films are kind of like, you know, blown up and made to be something that's not real. So I guess I was kind of interested if it was a thing, really. And then learning about the style, like the Adidas Originals and that kind of stuff. Certainly not my kind of style, but it was really interesting reading as like a young, impressionable teenager. That's the only kind of reading I've ever done. Also, I didn't learn to read until I was quite early in my teenage cycle. So I wanted to just kind of expand some knowledge and learn some more words that I'd never heard before. My knowledge of reading was from pretty much Football Manager, which is why also I know all the flags of the world, because I remembered all the flags. I remembered all the flags of the world because of Football Manager. But a bit of football hooliganism stuff and some running stuff, really.
And favourite TV shows? Any TV shows you're watching at the moment?
I'm gonna give you one. I'll give you one. Right. If you like Gordon Ramsay, who I'm obsessed with, anything he does, I watch compilations for days of Gordon Ramsay. Oh my word. He has a new thing with Gino and Fred.
Yeah,
I know
I've seen
Fred's
that.
It's brilliant.
Oh my word.
It's brilliant.
Me and my missus watched like literally, I didn't stream, I think it was on Sunday when I was supposed to. I promised I would and I didn't, because me and missus was hooked watching it. I think we watched like it's like 4 episodes in a row. Where they were going around America testing different food out. The chemistry those three have, it's proper dads. It's so perfect. And obviously with Gordon being the more alpha male, Gino being the kind of fancy prancy kind of one, and Fred flicking between the two, absolutely great watching. Yeah, I definitely recommend that if anyone's not seen it.
What's it called? What's the name of it?
I think it's called Road Trip. I think it's called Gordon, Gino and Fred's Road Trip or something like that.
Yeah.
Very, very, very good.
It is funny. It is very funny.
Yeah, I've seen bits of that one. Well, Leigh,
very good.
It's been fantastic, mate. I really appreciate you coming on today. All of Leigh's links will be in the description, alongside obviously everybody else's as well. If you are struggling, you want to reach out, as always, the links to the professionals will be in the description down below as well. Or if you want to reach out to any of us as well, as I said, Twitter, or if you want to email us privately at info@westreamfm.com as well. But as always, if you'd like to hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and leave us any comments if you've got questions for future pods, if you'd like to see any guests on future pods, and if you've got any comments on today's podcast. But until next time, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, stay safe, and we'll see you all very
got there,
soon.
Dave.
Say goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you later.